Hello my dear children, welcome to the new class, and this new class simply began with the discussion of the indirect speech or reported speech in the previous class. Today I have already told you about how the speech becomes direct or the indirect. Again I am just explaining you the speech or the words of the speaker or the statement becomes direct when the speech is the direct statement of the speaker himself or herself. That means when the speaker originally puts forth his own words or her own words, his statement or speech is called the direct speech. But when the words of the original speaker are quoted by somebody else other than the speech is called indirect speech. When does the speech become indirect? When the quotation marks are omitted, when the exact words of the speaker undergo a little bit changes, then the speech becomes indirect. So simply remember, direct speech is the direct quotation or the statement of the original reporter, and when the words of the original reporter are put forth other than the original speaker, the speech becomes indirect. That means in the indirect speech, the original speaker words are effected a few changes by some other speaker except the original speaker. This is called the indirect speech. So now I am just going to explain you how the various direct speeches are changed into indirect speeches, or how does a direct speech turn into indirect speech. So in order to change the direct speech into indirect speech, first you have to focus on the various sentence patterns. In order to make the direct speech into indirect, you need to know various sentences first. Number one, declarative sentence. Number one is the declarative sentence or assertive sentence. This is the number one. What do you mean by declarative or assertive sentence? That means if there is declarative or assertive sentence within the inverted commas or in the direct speech. Remember, direct speech means the words that are kept within the inverted commas by the original speaker. So when the words are within the inverted commas and the speech becomes direct one, number one, it is on the declarative sentence. How does the direct speech come? Declarative sentence means, obviously you just remember, your sentence simply begins with the subject. When the sentence begins with the subject, then verb, then that wrote the rest portion, this particular pattern of the sentence is called declarative or assertive. That means every direct speech beginning with the subject plus verb is called declarative or assertive. This is the making, but this is not the meaning. Declarative means it makes a declaration or it says something about the subject. So when the sentence says something about the subject, it is called a declarative or assertive sentence. And commonly your declarative begins with the subject plus verb plus ... formula. So now I am just going to explain you about how a declarative sentence in the direct speech is changed into indirect speech. Suppose in the direct speech, if I say, father said, I have been ill. Father said, I have been ill for a month. Remember, what is the direct speech? Actually, I have been ill for a month. This is called the DS. But nowadays, the entire sentence is called a direct speech because the words of a father here are kept within the inverted commas. So this particular portion, having this particular portion with the various words of the father that have been kept within the inverted commas, it is called a direct speech. I have been ill for a month. This is called the direct speech. And father is the speaker or a reporter. Father is the original speaker or reporter. Said is the RV, or this is called a reporting verb. This is called a direct speech. Now in order to change this direct speech into indirect, first you go straight to the pattern of the sentence. In which pattern we have the sentence? Definitely this particular direct speech is in the declarative pattern or a DS. How is it declarative? Because it begins with the subject I. Then the verb have been. Have been is the present perfect tense. So as the sentence begins with the subject and verb, this is purely the declarative or the assertive pattern. So now we have to change into indirect speech. Remember how we have to effect a few changes while changing the direct into indirect. Without knowing the Humpty Dumpty of the rule, without knowing the clumsiness of the rule, without knowing the complicacy of the rules, without knowing the intricacy of the rules, how you have to change the direct into indirect. Suppose number one, your inverted commas should be omitted. Number two, your comma should be also omitted. So the answer is father said. Okay, in the indirect speech. As the direct speech begins with the subject I, you can use or you can put that, or you cannot put that it does particularly depend upon you. But here, nowadays, particularly while changing such type of pattern into indirect, we commonly use the conjunction that in the indirect speech. Then you have to change three important expression of the phrases in the sentence. Number one, I means your father. So when father's words are quoted by somebody else, this I becomes he. He means father. Number, present perfect is the have been. So this present tense verb should be changed into past tense verb. That means present perfect have been should be changed into had been as the past perfect. Now you just notice what type of changes I am effecting in the indirect speech. First, I is changed into he. Have been present perfect is changed into had been. So these expressions are getting changed. Then ill, then for a month. Then ill, then for a month. Okay, so now you just get your indirect speech. Father said that he had been ill for a month, because here the exact words of the father or the original speaker are being put forth by somebody else. Here this is not the speech of the father, though it is the speech of the father, but this speech of the father is told by somebody else other than father. That is why it is called indirect speech. So while you have to change the direct into indirect on the declarative or assertive pattern, remember your subject needs to be changed. I should be changed into he, indicating father in the masculine gender. Present perfect should be changed into past perfect. Then in certain cases your times and places also need to be changed while converting the direct into indirect. But one thing remember, if the declarative sentence begins with the subject in the direct speech, you have to simply add that and the necessary change should be taken place in the indirect narration. Now we have to go to the time. Now we have to go to the time and the place. How our times and place expression also changed accordingly in the indirect speech. Suppose if I say the doctor said to father, the doctor said to father, comma inverted comma begins, you must see me tomorrow. You must see me tomorrow. Full stop, inverted comma ends. This is the direct speech, and here the direct speech begins with the subject you. Remember, so this is the statement of the doctor. That means you must see me tomorrow. This statement simply goes to father. So this statement of the speaker, the doctor, is the direct speech, and this direct speech begins with the subject you. So that means this direct speech in the declarative sentence or the declarative pattern. As usual, you have to change this into indirect speech or reported speech. How we can change? The doctor, number one. Here the reporting verb is said. So here somebody says to somebody else. Then the doctor says to father. If someone says something to somebody, this is said to is changed into told. That means the doctor told father. As usual, this declarative pattern begins with the subject you. So you can use the conjunction that. The doctor told father that. Then you means father, so from you please change into he means father. Then must should be changed, or must can also be changed into had to, because must is related to have to. So have to, the past form of have to is had, as must is equivalent to have to in the modal. So this have to should be changed into had, or you can retain must. There is no variations about it. Then me means the doctor, so me should be changed into him or the doctor. Another vital information is about tomorrow, which is the time expression. So this tomorrow should be changed into the next day or the following day. The next day or the following day. So this is the time expression. As usual, tomorrow should be changed into the next day or the following day. Today should be changed into that day. Yesterday should be changed into the day before or the previous day. Suppose there is a day after tomorrow, it should be 2 days after. The day before yesterday, it is 2 days before. Now should be changed into then. Ago should be changed into before. Accordingly, you have to change this time expression. Suppose in the direct speech, you have a lot of expression indicating your place or a side. Suppose here is there, so here should be changed into there. Suppose this is there, this should be changed into that. This is there, these should be changed into those. Accordingly, we have to change. But vital information is that the direct speech, you have to simply notice whether the direct speech begins with the subject. If the direct speech begins with the subject, it is declarative pattern. So as it is being in the declarative pattern, you have to simply add that. Then a necessary change should be taken place. Your you should be changed into he. Then must either should be changed into had to, or it should simply retain it. Then tomorrow should be changed into the following day or the next day. So this is the pattern number 1. So you please remember the pattern number 1. Pattern number 1 means it is your declarative pattern. Declarative pattern means the sentence begins with the subject. So if the sentence begins with the subject, you have to change into subject, then your verb. And always remember, you are in the direct speech, your present verbs. Present verb means it does not matter in what type of forms these verbs are. But present verb should be changed into past verb forms. All the present verb should be changed into past verb forms. Just like I'm just telling you, I'm not simply writing it. Suppose go, goes. These two verbs are in the present simple. Now change them into went as the past simple. Isam are going. Present progressive, change them into past progressive as was going or were going. Was should be used with singular subject and where should be used with singular plural verb, a plural subject or plural pronoun or plural noun. Similarly, has gone, have gone. These two verbs come under present perfect, then this should be changed into had gone as the past perfect. Suppose has been going, have been going. These verbs come under present perfect progressive. You have to change them into had been going as the past perfect progressive. Similarly, present be verb, isamar. So isamar should be changed straight into indirect as was or were. Hazab should be changed into had. Do not or does not in the present simple should be changed into did not. If there is a did not, remember, if there is did not plus main verb, as the past simple in the direct speech, did not should be changed into had not plus past participle. But you have to simply remember these rules. You have not to simply note them down. Otherwise, it will be very boring to you to remember lots of rules which will be really a matter of clumsiness for you in the future while dealing the direct into indirect. As you go on changing direct into indirect with these types of changes, automatically it will help you when you have to simply drill them or you have to simply make it a habit or make it a practice. Remember, and modal, all the modal. Suppose can is there. We know, remember this particular modal can is in the present form. So you can change into could. Then may in the present form, past is might. Shall present form should. Will present form would. Must, which is corresponding to the meaning of have to, should be changed into had to as the case may be. So these types of modals also need to be changed. And along with the changes that you are going to effect, particularly in the time expression and place. So only remember that 4 important changes should be there from the direct into indirect. What will that? Number 1, your person should be changed in the indirect. Number 2, your time expression should be changed. Number 3, your verb or tense patterns also needs to be changed. And number 4, place also needs to be changed in the indirect speech. But remember, even though these 4 things need to be changed in the indirect speech, their meanings remain consolidated or intact. We don't make any sorts of changes in their meanings. Only they are changed accordingly, keeping their meanings intact or keeping their meanings reserved. So this is the direct speech, particularly in the declarative sentence or assertive sentence, which commonly begins with the subject plus verb. In the next class, I will dwell on the converting the direct into indirect speech, particularly on the yes/no question. Remember, your yes/no question means commonly your sentence begins with either the main verb or the auxiliary verb. Why are these questions called yes/no? Because the answer simply comes either in the positive yes or either in the negative yes. If I suppose, will your father go to Kolkata tomorrow? You can answer the questions by simply starting the sentence with yes. Yes, he'll No, he won't. So that is why such type of questions are called yes no questions. So in the next class I will tell at length, or I will tell in detail about changing the direct into indirect, particularly on yes no patterns of the question. That's all for today, and I still hope that you must have completely understood my lessons on the direct speech while changing the direct into indirect, particularly on the declarative pattern of the sentence. Declarative means your direct speech begins with the subject. In the next class, you simply wait with bated breath for my yes no patterns of the question, while I will be simply changing the direct into indirect with some doses of example. Till then, have a good